And we are live. It is Saturday morning, August 31st, week one, the official kickoff of college football season. I am your host, Brewhan Luke. This is the Grateful Ducks Tailgate edition of the Grateful Ducks podcast. I'm going to remove that from the stage. I shouldn't be there right now. This is what happens when you're live. You don't need that on here until later on. But welcome to the first ever Grateful Ducks Tailgate Week 1 edition. This is going to be a weekly segment that I do in addition to the regular episodes of the college football podcast, where I will preview the biggest games of the week. I will also recap any action that happened earlier in the week. So like today, we will recap some of the Big Ten games from Thursday and Friday that occurred. There's a little bit to discuss, but not a whole lot there. We will just kind of go through that a little bit quickly because we want to talk about everything that's going on today. That's why we are here. That's why we are live. Not every episode of this will be live. Some of this will be recorded episodes that will drop at 9:30 on Saturday mornings for your weekly tailgate. But for today, we're doing this live, and we'll see how things go as we are live. So let's just kick things off with some of the action that we have had so far this week. Starting with Thursday night in the Big Ten. You had Minnesota versus North Carolina in Minneapolis. Game came down to the wire. North Carolina's starting quarterback left with what ended up being a broken leg. He is now out for the season, and that will be a big loss for North Carolina moving forward. Minnesota had the chance with the game on the line to kick a game-winning field goal and lost as time expired with the missed field goal. I really liked Minnesota to win that game. I was a lot higher on Max Brosmer to perform better, transferring in from FCS New Hampshire, and he just didn't look sharp. This could be a team that improves as the season goes on, but right now things do not look very good. I don't think North Carolina is going to have a very strong year without Drake May there and trying to sort through now having to find a backup quarterback. So this loss really told me more about Minnesota currently than it does about North Carolina, and the fact that maybe I overhyped them. I thought they would be a little bit better, and they did not look so great. Going on, Rutgers took care of business against Howard University, 44-7. A little bit of controversy at the end of that game when Rutgers was up and they could have kneeled at the goal line and ended the game. Howard head coach was really upset because they kept going for it and they ended up punching the ball in to run up the score there. I'm really unsure why. Kyle Monangai looked great. The best running back, their leading rusher in the Big Ten last year. Looks to be just as good this year. It will be interesting moving forward now that Rutgers' starting middle linebacker is out for the season. He was a Butkus Award finalist preseason, and now that they don't have him on defense, I think once their schedule gets a little bit more challenging, it will be a lot more difficult to replace him, not playing a team like Howard. Also, Western Michigan versus Wisconsin last night. Wisconsin eked out the win. First game for Tyler Van Dyke looked a little bit flat. Western Michigan was in this game for a lot longer than they should have been. I will just leave it at that. I don't know how things are going to shake out at Wisconsin. It's probably going to take a little bit of time to get some more consistency and get some flow going with Tyler Van Dyke and the Wisconsin offense. But Tyler Van Dyke looked more like the Miami quarterback of 2023 than he did of the Miami quarterback from 2022. And if you were watching Miami football last year, Tyler Van Dyke did not look very good. They are hoping to revive that older form of Tyler Van Dyke under Phil Longo's offense at Wisconsin, and it was not the best start for him. Also, we had Illinois versus Eastern Illinois. Illinois beat the Panthers 45-0. We don't need to talk about that anymore. That's Eastern Illinois is going to have a good team in the FCS. They were in over their head a little bit this week. Luke Altmaier, 4 touchdowns, and it was ugly. Eastern, you couldn't even get a field goal? Like, come on, man. What do we? God, that was frustrating. I thought they would at least put up a little fight for like a quarter, but nothing there. But Illinois is not bad. Hats off to the Illini there. They took care of business the way that they really should have. And last but not least, we had an interesting game last night. Florida Atlantic at Michigan State. I was able to sit down and watch this game in its entirety. First game for Jonathan Smith and Aiden Childs. Whew, boy, do they got some work to do. Florida Atlantic gave them all they could. Game ended with a 16-10 final score. And, there's a lot of hype behind Aiden Childs being the next big thing in the Big Ten as a quarterback to keep an eye on. Might be not this year. That might be a year away because he did not look great. That Michigan State offense looked more like an Iowa offense, if we're being honest. And that's going to be a rough go. The Michigan State pulled off the win. I don't see it. Florida Atlantic had a really good game plan. And part of their game plan was that their starting quarterback in the spread offense, who's a mobile quarterback, doesn't know how to slide. Every time he went down the slide, Michigan State was like coming in late and with these super late hits. Part of that also is Michigan State defense needs to be more disciplined. You lost a starter to targeting in the first half, almost lost a starter again. After review, they realized that the Florida Atlantic quarterback was not giving himself up quite yet, and it was a clean hit. But Michigan State got out of there and eked out a win, and it was not pretty. So moving into the Big Ten season, they got a lot of work to do because Florida Atlantic had a game plan there that really they should have most likely won. I liked what they were doing. They had but they kind of beat themselves with turnovers as well, which Michigan State took advantage of one of the interceptions and drove downfield for a touchdown, and that really ended up being the difference in the game. But I can't buy into this Aiden Childs hype quite yet after watching that game. He looked okay at Oregon State last year, but now moving into this Big Ten, good luck, homie. We'll see how things shake out. And also the defense needs to clean up how they play football and tackle and hit. So let's get into, non-Big Ten news. Another thing I did that did catch my eye last night was Oklahoma. I just want to talk about them really briefly. I know they only played Temple, but they steamrolled Temple and lit up the scoreboard in the first half with Jackson Arnold. He had 4 passing touchdowns in the first half. The game was over by halftime. I believe Jackson Arnold and the starters still came out for the second half for a little while, but they looked like a complete team, as you should against Temple. Once they get into the new SEC schedule, will they look the same? I don't know. They also probably did not show a lot of what they could do on offense because they were playing Temple. So once you get into the meat and potatoes of that schedule, you're going to see a lot more. But they were able to do that and just keep things basic with Jackson Arnold. Very impressive start for Oklahoma. All right, so moving forward, that's being said, let's get into today's action. And, of course, we're starting with the Ducks. So Oregon is back in Autzen Stadium. That feels so nice to say. Get them back in action at Autzen Stadium today. I don't know the line on this game. I'm not even going to look it up. It's somewhere in the 40s, 46, 45, 44, something like that. Doesn't matter. It's a tune-up game for whatever you want to say for the Ducks against Idaho. But Idaho's a very good FCS team. They went to the playoff quarterfinals, I believe, last year. Tough place to play in the Kibbe Dome. is their home stadium. Is the place that would be really cool if you ever get a chance. I've heard it's great to watch a game from. That's a place that's on my list to go watch a game from. It's the Kibbe Dome to go watch Idaho football. As strange as that sounds, it'd be a fun game. A little bit of good, strong tradition there. So they can't really take Idaho lightly. They're still a good team, but Oregon's on another level. Hopefully, things go smoothly, and in the second half, we see Dante Moore coming at quarterback for Dylan Gabriel. Another thing of note, about 2 weeks ago, Matthew Bedford went down with a knee injury, and Coach Lanning said he's going to be out for a while. He is not expected to play in this game. However, he was seen practicing this week. 2 weeks later, he was back at practice. I don't know what out for a while means. It could have meant 3 weeks for Coach Lanning. He didn't go into specifics there. I remember last year he said Noah Whittington was going to be out for a while, and he was out for the season with the knee injury after having an early injury in like week 2 or 3. So you never know what out for a while truly means. But it's very encouraging that the transfer from Indiana at right guard, Matthew Bedford, is nearing coming back to play in the games. But it's okay to have him rest until he's fully healthy. You most likely don't need him at any point today. You don't need to see him. Let him heal. And then next week you got Boise State. If he's healthy and ready to play for Boise State, put him in there. If he's still on the edge, you're going to be a heavy favorite against Boise State, and you should be taking care of business there against a Group of 5 team. Boise State's a very good G5 team. One of the favorites to make the playoff as the Group of 5 team this year. But Oregon at home will still be a double-digit favorite against Boise State. I would think that if there is any hesitation about Matthew Bedford, they are going to wait it out at least for another week or two. They want him healthy down the road in Big Ten play when things are going to get really challenging against more experienced teams, more difficult teams. Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin in November. Looking forward to seeing a lot of the defensive transfers come in and play. And see how things go there in year one. Dylan Gabriel is going to be the highlight. He's a Heisman favorite. I'm more intrigued to see how things look on defense with Jabbar Muhammad, Kobe Savage, Jordan Birch now in year 2 in this defense. How do things gel with everybody on that side? Really excited for Evan Stewart on offense, the wide receiver from Texas A&M that transferred in. Obviously, you got Tez Johnson. I'll be interested to see the running back room and how things shake out. I mean, Jordan James is RB1. You've got Noah Whittington there. Are we going to see Jay Johnson? Who else are we going to see coming in at running back, and what kind of reps are we going to see there? So the second half of the game is still something as an Oregon fan you're going to want to watch and tune into, because there's a lot of depth on this team, especially at wide receiver, especially in the running back room. And it'll be a lot of fun to watch the future with Dante Moore come in at backup when they take Dylan Gabriel out of the game. But that's enough about the Ducks. It's not really a big game. We've got to talk about all the other games on the slate, starting with the big noon kickoff game of the week on Fox. Penn State versus West Virginia. Last year at Penn State, Penn State won this game 38-15. Took care of West Virginia pretty easily. There was very low expectations at West Virginia last year. This has changed now this year. Had a winning season last year, was not really expected to be an 8-win team, 9-win team. They really stepped up. However, they had 3 or 4 close wins that were like a one-possession game or one-score game where they eked out the win. Penn State, I'm going to pull this up. Penn State, last I checked, was -7.5. It's still -7.5 on the spread there. I'm not going to bet the spread on this one. I want to see how Drew Aller plays under new offensive coordinator Anthony Kotelnicki's offense. Anthony Kotelnicki, in case you don't know, came over from Kansas. He was Kansas's offensive coordinator for the last 3 seasons. He was also at Wisconsin Whitewater under the same head coach, and also at Buffalo. So he's been around with the same coaching staff through all these years. So now he's at a new coaching staff working under James Franklin. One of the highlights of Anthony Kotelnicki's offense is he usually has a mobile quarterback, and Drew Aller is not a mobile quarterback. So I'm curious to see how the things play out here. Is he going to have Drew Aller roll out and then run out of the pocket a little bit more? He's not very fast. He's got a big arm. What I saw from Drew Aller last year was he was a good quarterback, except in games against like the Michigans and the Ohio States of the world, who he looked awful. And that's not a good sign. You want to look good against the good teams and then do what you're supposed to do against the other teams. I think he's due for a good game against West Virginia. And if the narrative continues, Penn State should roll. They play well against everybody except Michigan and Ohio State. If you want to take a side on this, I would take Penn State minus 7.5. I would not encourage you to take it, but if you like it, I would go that route. I would go more towards the side of the total and go under 49.5. I'm not putting a side on this game. I'm not playing this one. I'm more intrigued to see how Penn State's offense is going to do under Anthony Kotelnicki and see how Drew Aller looks. I'm keying in on those things. Penn State should win. I would expect them to have a double-digit win, but it's still going to West Virginia and playing in a very difficult atmosphere. Next game on the slate. This is not a ranked opponent versus ranked opponent game, but it could be if South Dakota State was a FBS team. As you may or may not know, South Dakota State, back-to-back national champions in FCS. Great program. A lot of tradition. I think if they were a FBS team, they would be ranked in the top 25. That's how highly I think of this team and this program. Oklahoma State returns a lot on both sides of the ball, but it's the Ollie Gordon show. They run the ball heavy with Ollie Gordon. Can South Dakota State stop Ollie Gordon? If you can stop Ollie Gordon, you have a chance of winning this game. If you let Ollie Gordon run all over you, it opens up all other options on the offense. Oklahoma State returns their number one receiver. They return their starting quarterback. But South Dakota State's got to be prepared. They've had all offseason to prepare for this game in Stillwater. Mark Gronowski, very good quarterback, could have transferred to a Big Ten program if he wanted to. Chose to stay. Last year won the Walter Payton Award. Heisman Trophy winner for FCS schools. Some names that have won that in the past from the quarterback position: Tony Romo, Jimmy Garoppolo. Throw Mark Gronowski's name right in there, especially if he can win a third national championship this year. They're going to come out and play. The line on this game is 10 and has not moved at all. It stayed on 10 for Oklahoma State. I'm going to go with South Dakota State plus 10 here. You can't underestimate the Dakota schools when they go up against a Division I program. Look at North Dakota State against Colorado. They should have won that game. Referees thought otherwise. And North Dakota State is a little bit down this year for North Dakota State standards. And they still almost pulled off the win. I'm not saying South Dakota State's going to win this game, but I think it's going to be a one-score game in the fourth quarter. Give me South Dakota State plus 10. Next up, one of my favorite games of the weekend. God, I love this matchup. in-state rivalry game with Florida and Miami. I'm featuring the two head coaches here because you got Napier at Florida and Mario Cristobal at Miami. This is a big game for both of these coaches. Why? Because the loser of this is going to be on the hot seat even more. Billy Napier, a lot of people say, is already on the hot seat. Florida's got the toughest schedule in the country. How many wins will save Billy Napier's job for next year? 5, 6, 7? Does Florida have to be a double-digit winning team this year? I don't think so. I think if he wins 6 games, he keeps his job for next year with the hardest schedule in the country. Returns his quarterback, Graham Mertz, second year. I really am a firm believer in year 2 of a quarterback in a system transferring in. Tends to have a lot of success. There's some history there with other quarterbacks transferring to another Division I program and having a lot more success in year 2. I'm not saying that Graham Mertz is going to be a Heisman contender, but I think he's going to do enough to make this Florida team live up to expectations or exceed the expectations. A lot of people say, the win total's at 4.5, win total's at 5.5 for Florida. How does Billy Napier survive that? I would take the over. I think they got 6, 7 wins in them on this schedule. They're going to be prepared. On the other side of the ball, on the other sideline, man, this is the most talented team Mario Cristobal's had at Miami. But again, keyword there is the talent is there. Can they win the game? There are some reports this week out, not from Cristobal that I saw, but some reports out that said that Mario Cristobal, learning from years past and mistakes of past games where he's been the head coach, has hired an in-game decision maker to help him during games. Not sure what that entirely means and how much this coach will have to say. Was it an external hire? Did he just add a title to another coach that is not an offensive or defensive coordinator? So, is the quarterback coach an in-game decision maker? Is it the running backs coach? I don't know what that means. But apparently there's somebody that'll be on the sideline or in the booth on a headset telling Coach, this is what we need to do here. And is he going to listen to him? Is he actually going to listen to what he says? If he disagrees with it, is he going to say, no, I can't do that? Will Mario Cristobal let Cam Ward cook? Cam Ward is a phenomenal quarterback. Saw it at Incarnate Word when he was a 4,000-yard passer under G.J. Kinney. Both G.J. Kinney, now at Texas State, and Cam Ward have moved on. Cam Ward has moved on twice. He passed for almost 3,500 yards last year at Washington State. And he could run. He could do a lot of things for this offense that Tyler Van Dyke could not do. But part of the problem is, again, you go back to Coach Cristobal. Quarterbacks, other than Justin Herbert at Oregon, quarterbacks have not had success when Mario Cristobal has been the head coach. How's Cam Ward going to look? Miami is the better team. They should be a contender to win the ACC. But you're going to the swamp. You are playing in the swamp. And Florida is a home dog, 2.5-point dog. That atmosphere, if Florida could get out early and get an early score in this game, that stadium is going to be loud. It's going to be very challenging. Big advantage there. I don't know if Florida pulls off the win, but it's going to come right down to the wire, and the sports books would agree with that. Another stat. I'm not going to play. Well, I might play Florida plus 2.5. We'll see how I feel in a half hour after the show gets off the air. But The other part of that, I really like the under. Love the under here. Here's why. 4 straight matchups between these two teams. Okay. 4-0 to the under. Last 4 games between Miami and Florida. 4-0 to the under. Total today is ticked up to 54. At one point, it was 52. People are betting the over. They're high on Cam Ward. They're high on Miami and their offense. I'm taking that under. I'm taking the trend and the 4-0 towards the under in the last 4 matchups between these two teams. Not going to put a final score out there, but I'm playing the under. 54, under 54. Next up. Get your popcorn ready. Texas A&M, Notre Dame at Kyle Field. Mike Elko's debut for the Aggies as head coach. Riley Leonard, Duke transfer. Played under Mike Elko last year at Duke. New Notre Dame offensive coordinator who's supposed to fit the mold of Riley Leonard style. This has got a lot of intrigue to it. Here's the problem. And here's what you need to know about Notre Dame. Here's why I like Texas A&M in this game. Offensive line for Notre Dame. They're going to be in for a long day. A long, long day. Just let's put this in perspective here before I get into this stat that you need to know about. Joe Alt, left tackle last year for Notre Dame. First round draft pick. He's gone. Okay, that's okay. Who do you have replacing Joe Alt? Jagusa, left tackle. 4-star recruit. One of the top left tackles coming in the country to replace him. He's ready to go. He's prepared. Out for the year, tears his ACL in training camp. Now, he had no starting experience, nor does his backup. So that is the same. But there's going to be a big drop-off there, especially early on in the season. You have to go up against the Texas A&M defense that is, Mike Elko calls it, the best defense he's ever coached. And he was the former DC at Texas A&M. He had a hell of a defense at Duke and got way more out of that Duke team and that defense than any other coach potentially could. Nick Scourton, I don't know how to say his last name, but he led the Big Ten in sacks last year. You think that Notre Dame's going to be ready for Scourton and this defensive line and like coming at Riley Leonard, bringing the heat on every play? Notre Dame's offensive line, between the 5 starters on offensive line, and this is where it's going to become a problem for Notre Dame. 5 starters, total starts combined between all 5 starters, 6 starts. They have 6 games of starting experience between all 5 of those guys on that line. Oh, boy. I don't know if they're going to make it through the first half, some of these guys. It's going to be a long day. And on top of that, as good of a quarterback as Riley Leonard is, we saw last year he had some injury problems. You got to get him out of the pocket and ready to move. And the problem is that Texas A&M secondary is still pretty good. They lost a lot of dudes to the transfer portal, but Mike Elko brought in a lot of dudes that fit this defense. The line is -3. I love Texas A&M. They open as a 2-point dog, and after the injury news to Jagusa, shifted to a favorite, and now it's moved all the way up to -3. I also am intrigued by the under. I'm looking at my phone, so just give me a second here because I forgot to write this stuff down. I was going to put the graphic on the screen. Guess what? I didn't do that. So I'm just scrolling down on my phone on the Sportsbook app to be named later, or it won't be. 47.5. Okay. So Texas A&M -3, 47.5 on the total. I think that Texas A&M defense and that Notre Dame defense have more experience and are more prepared, and there's more questions on offense for Notre Dame with the offensive line and the new offensive coordinator. Texas A&M, Connor Wegman. Which Connor Wegman are we going to see? Is he going to be showing up? That Texas A&M offense is still going to have some struggles. So 47.5, I would go towards the under again with the total there. That's about it for Texas A&M and Notre Dame. I'm excited to see that game, how that all shakes out. It's going to be a battle. And I really, God, Notre Dame fans, you're religious, you're Catholic, man. Better go to Touchdown Jesus or the chapel or the church or whatever the fuck that shit is that you guys have on your campus. I was there over the summer. I stopped in. I wasn't impressed. I'm not going to lie. Touchdown Jesus, cool. Stadium, cool. Campus, whatever, man. It wasn't my vibe. I just didn't like it. But you have a church there on campus somewhere. You might want to go there and pray for your offensive line because holy shit, Nick Scorton, he's probably a top 10 pick in the NFL draft next year. And last but not least, Sunday night football, from Vegas, USC versus LSU. I don't have any notes for this one because I've been looking at this game and checking all the different storylines about this game all offseason. These teams are like identical twins, the way things shake out. LSU loses Heisman Trophy winner quarterback Jaden Daniels. USC loses Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Caleb Williams. LSU fires their defensive coordinator. Brings in a new defensive coordinator from Mizzou. Makes him the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country. USC fires Alex Grinch. Gets a new defensive coordinator. Brings in D'Anton Lynn from UCLA. Had a lot of success at UCLA. I mean, the storylines are like exactly the same. Two dog shit defenses last year, and then two offenses that are bringing the next man up. Miller Moss, USC, redshirt freshman. Going to be fun to watch. This is where it's going to be the difference. Miller Moss, one start, bowl game, looked great. Okay. Garrett Nussmeier, a little bit more starting experience. I also think Garrett Nussmeier could be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft next year, this coming season, 2025 NFL draft. Could be the next quarterback of the New York Giants. Just throwing it out there. I'm going to play, and I have to look still later on. I'll tweet this out. I'll tweet it out on Sunday. I'm looking for Garrett Nussmeier passing yards and the over. I'm guessing it's going to be somewhere around 250 to 270, most likely. Looking at his receivers and anytime touchdowns. Going to be looking at all the Garrett Nussmeier passing touchdown props, first half props. I mean, the total in this game last I saw was like 63 or 64. Get that number before it skyrockets up to 67, 68, because this game's going to go up into the 70s. Play the total every which way. LSU, somebody sent me something. LSU first half team total was like 16 and a half. Way over. That's a hammer bet. Take that. LSU is a 4.5 point favorite in this game. They're the better team. LSU has not won a season opening game in 4 years. They've got 4 straight losses on the schedule for the season opener. This year, they get over the hump. They cover the spread by more than 4.5 points. So that's it for my predictions, my Grateful Ducks tailgate for this episode. I will have some more of these moving forward. They won't always be live, but they will be recorded and dropped usually around 9:30 a.m. on Saturday mornings. We'll add in some more games as they get bigger, as we get more intrigued. We're going to go be like today. We were Big Ten heavy, recapping the games from Thursday and Friday. We're going to be Oregon Duck heavy on this show on the Grateful Ducks tailgate. And then we're going to talk about all the other Big Ten matchups when we get into Big Ten play as well. But for now, everybody enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Enjoy watching College Game Day. Or Fox or the CBS Sports one. I should have just promoted any shows. But enjoy the rest of the Saturday morning kickoff in under an hour for week 1. Let's go. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe, share, and we will see you at some point next week with a week 1 recap. And then again, we will have a week 1 or week 2 Grateful Ducks tailgate for week 2. See everybody then. Sko Ducks. Peace. There it is. End stream. Bye.